In this lesson, we're going to see how to create a Z module for every entity that we have here, how to declare the Propel XML file in order to create these tables. Let's take a look at the IDE and the commands that we have available in order to create these folders. There are different ways to create a Z module. We could create a Z module by just going to src pyz z, then we can right click and create a new folder, and let's call the folder with the same name as the entity. In this case we have antelope entity, so let's call the folder antelope. All right, now that we have the main folder, we create the persistence layer folder. The persistence layer is the layer where we're going to have all the logic in order to persist our data. So let's right click and let's create the folder, and the folder name should be called persistence, and the folder name where we place all the XML files related to Propel is Propel, and then inside Propel schema. So let's create also the folder Propel, and inside the folder Propel we create the folder schema. So now we have this structure here, antelope, persistence, and then inside persistence we have Propel and schema. Inside this folder we define the schema file for creating the antelope's table definition. So let's just right click and let's create an XML file. The naming convention would be the name of the table, and normally the name of the table would be your namespace, and by default we use the project's namespace, in this case pyz, but you can use your own namespace if you're creating your own. Underscore name of the entity, in this case antelope, then dot, then schema, and then XML, and then we define inside here the schema file for our table. We can take a look at the Propel documentation by going to this website propelorm.org, and then we go to the documentation and then database schema, and you can see here all the definition that we have for the schema file. We have the main tag would be database, then we define the table, and inside the table we define the columns, we can define indexes, etc. If you take a look at the folder srcorm and then Propel schema, you're going to see the schema that were already defined by Spryker. So if we open this one, for example, you can see here that we have this header for the database, and you can see here the namespace of the main tag, the schema namespace location, and you can see here the namespace follows the naming convention of ORM, then Z, then the name of the folder, in this case would be antelope, and then persistence, and then the name of the package would be where the classes are going to be placed, and you can see here they would be placed inside src orm z, name of the module, in this case antelope, and persistence. So we can take this header here of this file and copy it here inside ours, and then we can close the database tag, and then we can change here the namespace and we add antelope, and then for the package name we add here antelope. All right, now it's time to define our table. Let's take a look at the documentation for our table. So here you can read more information related to the database, like the name that you want to give to the database, the default ID method for the auto increment column, the package name where the classes are going to be placed, the schema, table prefixes if we want to use by default. You can see all of this information. Then if we take a look at the table tag, you can see that we can define the name, the PHP name class if we want to override the default one that is going to be created by Propel, then some other attributes that we can describe, and then we can begin adding columns. You can see here all the explanations for every tag that we can define. Then for the column, we define one by one by giving it a name, the class if we want to override the default one, if it is a primary key or not, if the column is required or not, and then we can define also the type. It could be a Boolean column, tiny int, small int, integer, etc., according to the database columns definition. And you can see all of the explanation for every attribute that we can add to a column. Then you can see also here how to define a foreign key. We use the tag foreign key, then we define the table, then we give it a name, then we can add the reference. Then what we're gonna do on delete, if we cascade, set null, or restrict, for example, and what to do on update. The same goes for index. We can create an index, we can give it a name, we can map the column that we want to create the index on, the size of the index, etc. More information related to columns, for example, char, which is a fixed length, varchar, club, and then you can see the definition for decimal numeric data. These are the Propel types, and you can see here the database default type that is going to be created, and then the representation of that type into PHP.